#1 threat to the United States.
Well, this time of year, credit card debt, and holiday spending, they tend to go hand in hand, but there are ways to keep that January credit card bill from being overwhelming. And thanks to our good friend Jade Beckman, who is, by the way, the VP of Consumer Lending with Mountain America Credit Union, here today to tell us how we can make that happen. Because, you know, it's not, just a couple of weeks away from when we start thinking about Black Friday.
It's unbelievable.
People are already, these deals are coming out now. Man, I think people just, sort of lose their mind when it comes to holiday shopping sometimes. You don't think about it. So
right.
What can we do to help prevent that big January bill?
Yeah, that's right. It's hard to believe that it's right around the corner. Isn't even Thanksgiving they'll be open, right? So I think some of the things that we've talked about in some of our Money Minutes throughout the year are good financial habits. And now's the time more than ever that you've got to practice those good financial habits that we've talked about. One of those things that I think is the most important is having a plan going into it. You know, a plan is another word for a budget. You know, sticking to that and kind of knowing what you're planning to do going into it. One thing to look at is your credit utilization. By that I mean, what's the balance of your credit card to your limit? Don't max those out.
Yeah, not a good idea.
That's not a good idea. Not only does it mean a lot of money to pay, but that's going to impact your credit also. That's a third of your credit score is that credit utilization.
When you talk about, like, you're going out to the mall or what have you, is there anything you can do right there? I mean, is it one of those things, do you guys ever advise, like, maybe setting your budget and then pulling the cash out if you have it or whatnot, rather than using the credit cards? You know,
I think that's a great idea. I wouldn't necessarily say the credit cards are an evil thing either, because as we've talked about before also, and I think Bill Gephardt talks about, that's a great fraud protector too, because you're using borrowed money, so if there is fraud, it's not your own money.
It's not yours coming directly out of the bank.
That's correct. But you talk about going to the mall, and I don't think there's a store you can go into the mall that they're not going to say, hey, here's a promotional store credit card also. Those aren't necessarily a bad thing, but I'd kind of say, I advise against it a little bit, just because you're trying to make a decision right there in the heat of the moment. You don't really have the time to say, is this a good card? What's the rate? What are the fees and things like that? And not to mention, then you can end up with, a multitude of credit cards, and that leads to problems too.
Sure, and they offer all these great details and great deals and stuff. You get 15% off your purchase or whatever.
Right.
So steer clear of those altogether, or is that something you should at least consider?
Well, I think it's just more of being more strategic about it. Don't go in and get that caught in the heat of the moment. If you see a deal out there that you think that's a good deal, and you check out the terms of that credit card, then at least you go in informed. The thing with the credit cards to remember is that credit cards is borrowing money, therefore interest is involved.
Sure.
And so if you kind of look at that in the long haul, and especially if you combine that with making minimum payments, that great deal really doesn't become such a great deal after all. You've paid the interest and that over time.
Have you guys put up any sort of new holiday tips or anything like that on the website?
Well, you can always find that all on our website, macu.com. Go check that out or come in and see us.
I imagine we will be talking about this on our Money Monday segments for the next few weeks as we get set for the holiday shopping season.